Sure, I'm good with it.
All right. So I am speaking today with, this is something that I do in like almost every episode. I don't check, I don't pay attention to who I'm actually talking to. Is your name Sam Weber? Am I pronouncing it correctly? And is that the name you professionally go by?
You nailed it.
All right.
That all checks out.
Okay, good. So I am speaking with Sam Weber. You are an indie. Would you call yourself a cartoonist?
I'd say that's fair.
Yeah.
I comic artist, like cartoonist is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
Or
So we were connected through a mutual friend of ours, Jason Green, who was I just did an episode with a few weeks back, and
it was a good episode. I liked it.
Oh, thank you. I love talking to Jason. He's like the most professional guy I have ever spoken to. Like, that guy is on point. He always knows what to say and how to say it.
Yes.
He's good. It just a plug for Jason. I use him as an editor. If you need an editor, contact Jason Green. He is the man to talk to.
Right.
But so we were connected through him. So we've never met in person, despite being friends on Facebook for who knows how long. We were friends before we were put into contact with each other. That's the miracle of social media. Is it's great for connecting with people, but you can also already be connected and not know it, because who knows how algorithms work? I don't. So yeah. So but yeah, I say cartoonist because you have a comic that you do called actually tell me about it a little bit. What's it called?
So the comic is Oarsworn. It's published first on the web on a website called Tapas. It's a fantasy action comic taking place in a world in a medieval setting. Like, think medieval water world is basically my elevator pitch for it.
I definitely got that vibe. Yeah,
it's just a comic that takes you in the life of Sir Pepper Hellkinder, who belongs to this order of knights called Oarsworn. And these are the ultimate maritime badasses. They can run on water. They can swim for indefinite periods of time. They, can master all weapons. These guys are awesome. And this comic just takes you in his life.
Okay. Yeah. So I said cartoonist earlier because you write and draw, and basically you're the sole guy involved. Like, you're not working with a team. It's you doing everything.
Right.
That's pretty great. I always love seeing that in comics.
Yeah.
So I have. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to there was one edition of Oarsworn. It was actually an Ink and Drink short story that my fiance coloring for.
Oh, yeah.
But other than that, yeah, pretty much I have done everything Oarsworn.
No, that's cool. So I have a lot of questions about that, because I'm very jealous of people that can draw their own stories. As a writer, who works in comics, I'm very, very jealous of artists.
I mean, it's a lot of work. There are times where I think I would want to bring on other artists and just do the writing, but I don't know. I dig the art part.
Yeah, and that was always the fun part. Like, as a kid, I drew a lot. I just was never good at it, but I did, or I wasn't disciplined enough to become good at it. Man, maybe that's a better way to put it. But yeah.
I bet you're better than you think. Like, I have not read Immoral Stingray. That's your book, correct?
But I don't draw it. I just write it.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I have full confession. I did. Oh, wait, no. So I did appear in an Ink and Drink book, and I did technically draw it, but I don't want all the artists to hate on me, but the whole 4-page story was completely traced from other comic books, and it was like a collage satire of golden age comics, and everything I did I traced from old, like, public domain comics. Like, I made a collage of panels from old, the Stardust, the Space Wizard. I used some of those, and like old war comics. And I was able to make a collage that visually made a story, and I traced all the art, and then I built my own story on top of that. and that was a lot of fun.
Tight.
So,
yeah, which one is that in?
That is it's in Liquid Courage.
Oh,
the Ink and Drink book. That's the only
okay.
That's the only Ink and Drink book I've been in for that reason, because it sounded like a fun idea that I could do, and it was something that I could do myself and not have to work with like an artist, so I could just spend my time working on that. And it was like a parody of like Golden Age war superheroes called the Atomic Nazi Smasher.
That's an original concept, though. Like, I mean, doing the art that way.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too.
I remember I showed it to a collaborator artist of mine who will go unnamed, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" And he was like, "Wow, you drew this? This is pretty good." And I was like, "Well, I didn't draw it. I traced it." And he goes, "Oh," and I could tell he was like really disgusted. And I explained the whole thing. Yeah, I explained the whole thing to him. I'm like, well, it's art the same way that like Lichtenstein is art. Roy Lichtenstein, who just like,
damn.
And he's that is a sensitive topic for a lot of comic books. Yeah,
that's a highbrow slam, though. That you just,
I just compare myself to Lichtenstein. I mean, if he can do it, I can do it, right? Like.
Well, he can do it for millions of dollars.
I know. I made nothing off that. I did it as volunteer work. But anyway, yeah. So I want to talk more about your book and just you as a creator. Have you always been somebody who's like into art? I know you're into comic books, like obviously, but have you been like an artist person?
So I came from an art school background.
Yeah, that was really where I got my
degree. So in college, I went to Carbondale, and I got my degree in the School of Cinema and Photography. Mm-hmm. So basically a film degree. Yeah, there, okay. I did a lot of short story writing, screenplay writing. It was mainly a concentration in writing. But I mean, I've been drawing my whole life. I've never had that as a strong point in my education background or in my work background. But I mean, I've just kind of self-taught myself to draw, and here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have always kind of been the artsy kid amongst my friends and associates and people I know. So I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah. Were you more interested in like, I guess you're talking about like film stuff. So you're obviously interested in storytelling. Does that take a precedence over like purely art? Like, were you just more interested in telling a story? And naturally there's a lot of crossover with art there, but that's where you're kind of coming from, more of just telling a story.
Yes. So a big part of my film school background was I would do a lot of people's storyboards.
Yeah. Okay.
So I was a little more versed, I think, in like the pre-production aspects of coming up with a story, blocking it out to show how it goes, and then implementing it. I was not ever really all that keen about being on a film set. They're just way too frantic and manic, and there's moving parts. And I think if you ask a lot of my film teachers about that, like that was never really my strong suit anyways. It came down to my skills really always laid in the planning and in the creation and the use of theme and idea and stuff like that.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I got the idea to do a comic, it was kind of the amalgam of my film school background mixed with like a lot of my writing background.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's cool. So like because that's interesting, because I know a lot of creators. I know like some artists who kind of found themselves doing comics, not because they particularly cared about comics, they just loved art, but comics are a way to get paid. And then I also know a lot of people that I've known people that had taught themselves how to draw so they could just make their comic, you know, however they wanted to do it. So have you, like, you coming into comics like this, were you familiar with comic books, like, as a medium? Like, did you read comics as a kid? Was it always like a part of your life?
So comics were a pretty large part of my life. I remember like my first comics being like the Archie Sonic the Hedgehog stuff.
Yeah.
I had quite a few of those. Oh my God. And the art in those are so cool. So I didn't read a lot of superhero comics in early life, but they were definitely a presence. And then the X-Men movie came out, and oh my God, yes.
Yeah, that was like a cultural moment when that happened.
Mm-hmm. That won me over with the X-Men hardcore. So I was reading, like, I remember reading a lot of just back issues, just random ones of X-Men, just wherever I could get them. But I was more interested in the art as a kid.
Okay. Yeah.
Not so much about the story.
Yeah.
That came later. I got really interested in story when it came to probably, I'd say, like late high school. Borders and Barnes and Noble started expanding their comics and graphic novel sections a lot.
Yeah, that early 2000s era was like a golden age to go to Barnes and Noble and Borders looking for comic related stuff.
It was.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I read a lot of graphic novels that way. I read a lot of manga. And I think I started getting more interested in story around that time. Also, one of my dear friends got me back into the comic shops because of a comic called Old Man Logan. He wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah.
Old Man Logan, it's the coolest thing ever. And I was just like, okay, I guess I'll go check out this thing. And it's Wolverine.
Yeah.
Oh, I just thought it was a catchy little name. Yeah. No, Old Man Logan was tight. That got me back into comics. More superhero genre stuff, like later in high school. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember when that book came out. That was, I mean, Mark Millar, like, he was at the top of his game as far as like comic celebrity. He was like the guy to, I mean, yes. I guess he still sort of is to a certain degree, but he's doing his own thing. He didn't have like all the Marvel.
Now he's like a TV whiz.
That's what I'm saying. He leveled up to Netflix. But you know, at the time he was like Marvel Comics golden child, you know, more or less. But
and I love his Ultimate X. He was Ultimate X.
Yeah, he did the first like 30 some odd issues of Ultimate X-Men.
Yeah, those were amazing.
Yeah, I go back and forth on Mark Millar. Like, he's
really?
what he's good at, he's very, very good at. But it starts to kind of feel like he's kind of very superficial. And I can pick out like his work that I think is good and his work that I think is just borderline just trash, like Michael Bay style trash, you know. But I don't want to pick on him too much because he's obviously done very well for himself as a creator. But you know, that's just me. I'm a big snob.
He's made a career out of like really marketable stuff for passing it along to television. Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah. Which that's really that's a good way to put it. And I think that's not a secret. I think everybody understands that he's really good at like the high concept elevator pitch, you know. Yes. And then it's the work kind of flows from that exactly how you might expect it to. And I don't think it's very challenging. It's not always interesting, but it definitely succeeds at what it sets out to do. And that's very valuable. Yeah.
Pays the bills.
Exactly. And then some for him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But so let's talk a little bit about your book. So when did you decide to do it as a comic? Was it a story that you've always had in your head that you thought you might like to do as a comic, or like how did it come about?
Well, I've always enjoyed drawing.
Mhm.
I think it's kind of different to talk about now, just because like so much of coming to develop and tell Oarsworn as a comic came from working and being surrounded by comic books.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
I being the manager of Fantasy Books at the time, I remember I was on vacation. Work stressed me out. Uh,
Stressed out working in a comic book store. How does that happen?
yeah,
You don't
my
have to
fiance
answer
is.
that.
Yeah, I know. well, I'll leave that up to your imagination.
Right.
But I there was one day in particular on a vacation down to Florida to see my parents.
Mm-hmm.
My girlfriend at the time, my fiance today, and I went with them on like this kayaking trip through mangrove swamps. It was awesome. It was just
Mm-hmm.
very um it fit the imagery of stuff that I knew that I wanted to draw accompanied to a story.
I can see that
And
immediately just based off the
yeah,
beginning of Oarsworn. Yeah.
yeah, that I I was imagining those scenes just being there,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that I wanted to do something more towards creative fulfillment than what I was doing, just managing the shop and playing Magic and reading comics.
Yeah, yeah.
I wanted my drawing skills to be applied to something.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought, okay, this is my story now. This thing that I saw just a glimpse of during this vacation, I'm going to really work towards.
Mm-hmm.
And so I forced myself to just kind of draw it out. And the story kind of took root. And yeah, here we are.
No, that's cool, man. I'm glad to hear that. I'm like in many ways, because I'm as a comic book writer, which it's something I've said multiple times in this interview. I think a lot of guys that work as comic book writers, they have an eye for art and they kind of always want to be an artist. I certainly did. Like I liked art. I just have various reasons why I'm not drawing my own comics. So there's a lot of respect and awe that comes from somebody that can take the plunge and just do it. So I'm always happy to see people do that. So like you're talking about the story that came out of that vacation. Was like when you were coming up with it, when you were creating it, like is it something that you plotted out like long term, or do you just kind of like get some like your basic idea and you start with chapter 1 and kind of go from there?
Chapter 1 kind of just like I went from there. I think I was starting to in the middle of probably like chapter issue 2.
Mm-hmm.
I was finding like, oh, okay, this could be a really long ongoing story.
Yeah.
A lot of that stuff wrote itself along the way. It was more about practicing the art,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And gosh, it seems so long ago now. Like the comic itself, so I like started drawing those first couple of pages. That would have been early 2017.
Okay.
And then I went to publish. So I had the first like 3 issues worth. Well, not quite. There were a few pages missing from issue 3. I had everything inked up to a certain point from like issue 1 all the way to the middle of issue 3.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought, this is pretty good. This is a good amount of content to post to the web.
Yeah. Okay.
So then around 2018, I think in March, was when I decided, okay, I'm going to color these pages and post them. And they were posted to Tapas and then what is now long deceased Smack Jeeves.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, it was on there too. And yeah, I don't know. It just like, so one thing I noticed are a phrase that you had used in your interview with Jason
Mm-hmm.
about some people want to start with their long projects,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I did that.
Yeah, that's like mistake number one that everybody makes. I did it too. Like I did it after everybody told me not to. And I was like, well, I'll figure out a way to make it happen. And yeah, then I'm like 10 years later, I'm like, I see why they said not to do that.
I'm getting it too. Yeah,
Yeah.
like they're Oarsworn now as it stands, like, so I have a rough outline of everything. Not everything's scripted out,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, so I just completed the first book. The first 5 issues comprise of volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
There's like 9 of those
Yeah.
volumes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like I don't know if I'm gonna do all that, but
Yeah. It's something that everybody has. One thing I like about comics as a creative medium is that kind of write as you go aspect to it, and it's something that I find really frustrating about a lot of comics these days, like on a professional level, is that they've really lost that that sort of like chaotic spark, or that like anarchy creative sense, because everything has to be so regimented, because sales are just so low. There's just no money in comics, so
you can't take as many chances.
Yeah, you can't take as many chances, and there's just like when pitching a series, you have to pitch a 4 or 5, maybe 6 issue arc. That's a complete story that can be a trade paperback. And if it's successful, then maybe you can do more stories in that format. But you can't just come up with like a really great concept like you would like maybe for TV. And I mean, TV might have moved away from this a little bit too. You can't just be like, here's my pilot, here's our established like running engine for how the story's going to work. Here's the world. And I got the first issue done, and I'm just going to go from there, and we'll see where it goes. Like, you can't do that anymore. Are we still connected? But just to finish my thought from what I was saying, I was just going on a rant about pitching comics in long form series.
No, but I liked this. This was good because it's like, okay, I'm watching Star Trek now, like all the Star Treks. A show like that would be perfect to have implemented in the forms of like that creative chaos, like you were saying, like those syndicated shows that just don't exist anymore because of how Netflix works, or those would be the ones I think that would really thrive or benefit from comic first. Carry it on to something else.
Right. Yeah. And I just recently read a biography of Jack Kirby, a comic biography by cartoonist Tom Scioli, and it's really great.
I'll have to check that out.
I recommend it. I put a little like 5-minute review on my YouTube channel of it. It's a really good book. I highly recommend it. But
I like your comic taste too, because I watched your Copra review episode, and I love Copra.
Oh, me too. Yeah, Michael FIFA is the guy when it comes to just pure creativity and just solid comics.
Right.
Yeah, but so it was fascinating, just getting this reminder of that time period when Kirby was working in comics, and just like to pitch a comic series back then in the 60s or 70s, it's come up with a character. What does he do? What do they do? And okay, draw your issue. We're going to greenlight it, and then just go from there. And it could be something like Fantastic Four that goes for 100 issues until he quits, and then it keeps going. Or it could be something like many of his other projects that just went a handful of issues before they got canceled. But like it's through that style that you're able to come up with the characters in the comics and the stories that do last for literally 50 years. You know what I mean? Like
you get longevity out of it.
Yeah.
Like if you breathe as much life into it as something like Kirby did. Like, admittedly, I've not read a whole lot of his work except his New God stuff.
Yeah,
I love that.
It's great. I love his cosmic stuff. So yeah, New Gods is a good place to start for that. His stuff at DC was really good, and I don't want to go off on too long of a Kirby tangent because I could talk about Kirby for the rest of the night. I love Jack Kirby, but yeah, right. That's good stuff.
But he would finish an issue in like a week or.
Oh yeah, he was. His turnaround was incredible. Like he was a workhorse. He just worked. He loved creating. But so what I was getting at with like all this conversation about like the change in how like a lot of professional comics in the mainstream comics work is everything has to be these like closely monitored and regimented story arcs. I think that webcomics have kind of picked up that long form creative chaos where print comics can't.
Yeah.
To some extent, yeah. And I think it's definitely changed a little bit over the years because the internet has kind of changed over the last like 20 years since people have been doing comics.
Yeah.
But because the internet and webcomics becomes like a total free for all. So there's no quality control. So you don't have an editor being like, that's a bad idea. That's a good idea. That's a bad idea. That's a good idea. And just letting, you don't have that little tiny bit of quality control. But I do think that that's where a lot of value in webcomics are. And that's why webcomics are as big as they are, is because people can they latch onto a creator they like. And it's just a story that just goes. Like there's not an expected, I'm going to invest in 4 issues and it better be a good story or I won't follow this creator again. It's like, you can just read a little bit of it and be like, I like this. Let's see where it goes, you know?
And, I think some of it too, like, is just freedom from the page. Like, you get stuff now that you can play around with just how to scroll with a comic and how that changes the work as opposed to just the page turn. Like there's just, you can play with the form so much more on the web, which I don't really do.
Yeah, me neither.
Something that I think about a lot.
Yeah. I do too. That's actually that is something I wanted to talk to you about. So you said that you started doing Oarsworn first in print. Like were you doing it like an issue? It
was
format?
Always created with the intent of print. I mean, my mindset was always print because of my comic shop background. So I was thinking about how this would appear on the shelf. But I mean, just so I've printed issues 1 and 2, the first 2 chapters, and sold those at the shop. Okay. When you're the manager of a shop and you're selling the book that you worked on, you can, I was able to squeeze some sales out of that.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah.
It's good to be the king.
Hey, my name's on it. And then I think people buy it because they think they're going to get a discount or whatever.
Right.
No, it was cool. But, I mean, I developed a lot of feelings about webcomics, as well as print comics just from doing both. And I really think that to some extent, like my next project or my next bit of work, I'm kind of in between Oarsworn right now. And admittedly, I don't know where I'm going to go with it, but like, to me, I think the webcomic format is calling me a little bit more, playing with scrolling formatting your weekly releases in 30 panel episodes as opposed to, just a page.
Yeah.
It's kind of the way, I don't know. It just
you've been looking at webtoons and stuff they've been doing there.
I have.
I know plenty of people who have like literally jumped ship from Tapastic to webtoons.
Yes. Well, and I think because I don't know how much of this affects my comic, admittedly, but Tapastic has guidelines too about their content that make it hard. I don't know if you ran into this at all reading my comic, but from what I've gathered, you can't immediately find Oarsworn just from browsing. It's got to be something that you search individually.
Yeah, I'm not sure because every time I've read your comic, it's been following a direct link that,
right.
you know, so, but I do know I don't want to air dirty laundry, but I've had my own misgivings with Tapastic, because we have Sarah Rude McEwen and I have our comic, the Uncontrollable Reclass, on there. And
let me write that down.
Yeah. So it's on Tapastic, and we've been doing it for 3 years. And it's an all ages kids superhero book. And it's just weird how it just doesn't seem to, like, it only exists in our bubble. Like, I know. I'm not trying to dog on anybody, and I might actually not even keep this in the podcast.
That's
because,
fine.
you know, I don't like to air dirty laundry or get too personal.
Let it out, brother.
But like, it's like, you know, I think we make a pretty accessible comic that anybody can like, you know. And whenever I go to Tapastic, their website, it's like all I see in their recommended sections, and this is me as an anonymous user, all I see in their recommended sections are
BL.
Yeah. It's all just like gay Korean romances. And I'm like, I get it. I get you're trying to go after that Webtoons market, because Webtoons is a Korean company and their biggest hits are those romance comics, you know. But it's like, I'll be anonymous on a page of our comic, Uncontrollable Reclass, and it's like recommended for you. Is it other all ages comics? Is it other superhero comics? No, it's literally gay elf romance comics. And I'm just like, is this all you have on your website? And it is. And it's one of those things where it's like, it's very difficult to complain about, because I'm not complaining about those comics specifically. I'm complaining about whatever algorithm is being employed that it sort of feels like you're being like shadow banned, or at least just not, like, people that might be interested in your book, they're not seeing it because whatever else is getting pushed is pushing you out of the way. And it's very frustrating. So that was me. That was me on
but
my
I can totally rant. I can totally relate to that. Yeah. Like, I mean, they have, in my case, it's like I've been told, or I've gotten warnings and stuff like that saying that your comic isn't going to be available on the iTunes store version of the app, or stuff like that. Because
your comic has like mature elements, like you have
there's a lot of blood in Oarsworn. I get it, but they have a mature section that is straight up just like lightsaber dong porn. And like, come on, man, you're telling me like, what's the deal? I know. It's, and this is the like the dark side of webcomics, because this is, I mean, we could open this up into a greater discussion of I think there's a lot of value in these hubs, these webcomic hubs, which draw an audience together. They draw a big user base who's interested in reading comics. That's great. Right. It's good for the creator, because let me tell you something. I was making webcomics before Tapastic and Webtoons were like the go-to thing. It's a pain in the ass to have your own website, pay for the bandwidth, hire somebody to build your website. Oh, you don't want to hire somebody to build it, you can use just a WordPress template. Well, that's also terrible, because all you get is 1,000 spam comments a day, and you can set it to where you have to moderate them, but now you have to moderate 1,000 spam comments a day for like the two genuine ones. It's so I see the value in like these hubs. They're really great. But now that means you're also kind of at the victim of whatever algorithm that is being employed, or whatever, I don't want to sound like a crazy news pundit, but like whatever agenda of the people that are in charge are trying to push. And I don't mean it the way other people mean it. I just mean, I know everybody, everybody's a person. We all have things that we want to prioritize. I
when you worked in a
like,
comic book shop, you would prioritize stuff that you thought would sell or stuff that you liked. Like
it would not look like Tapastic's homepage,
but exactly,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That would not. I'd be fine with that shop, but it would not fly in Bova.
Right? Yeah, exactly. It wouldn't necessarily be that thing.
Yeah. So it's my understanding that both Webtoon and Tapastic are both South Korean based companies, right?
I believe Tapastic changed hands at some point. I don't know when.
Okay.
So it might have started as one thing and then got bought out because they changed like to Tapastic to tapas.ic or whatever.
Right.
I don't know. I'm not an expert on the history of it. So anybody that knows, don't come look. I'm not here to give answers about the history of it.
Don't come at us in the comments.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't at me, as the kids say.
Yeah. But it's like, it's funny being on those sites. Like I have a friend who's on Webtoon, and I'm on Tapas, Tapastic. And Oarsworn is a pretty mature comic, but by Western standards, no.
Yeah, exactly.
Really. It's not that out of the, it's funny just being on a different playing field.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that I'm trying to, I guess, think about to formulate, okay, what kind of comic can I really publish on the web?
Well, that's a good question, because that's an excellent topic, and I would actually like to expand on that further, because I think there's kind of a dual thing going here, which is this is part of the creative path. Because I went through this when I was first starting out with my first webcomic, Zero's Heroes. And my idea was like, well, I'm doing a webcomic. There's no censorship whatsoever. Ain't nobody going to tell me what to do. I can do whatever I want. And while I personally, I have my own set of standards that I like to see in art, there was absolutely no sense of like, I better restrain myself here or there because the readers might not like it. Because when you're on the web, It's like, here's me. If you don't like it, don't read it. You know what I mean? I don't have to worry about sales. But as great as that creative freedom, again, that like anarchy, that creative chaos, it is also pretty juvenile and naive, and I think a sign of an amateur, of somebody who just refuses to even acknowledge that you have to have some sort of self-censorship on display, if for no other reason than to curate a consistent tone for your book.
Right.
So like I did my book Zero's Heroes, and it was largely PG, except for like 1 or 2 chapters where I just was like, I can go further if I want to. But now I have this awkward thing where I have a book that's mostly PG, that kids can read it pretty much mostly, except for this one part. And that's so like awkward. It's a little, it doesn't bother me, but it does get a little awkward when I'm at a convention and like parents will flip through it and be like, oh, this looks like it's for kids. And I'm like, it mostly is, except for this one part, Right. And so I understand the idea of like, okay, you need to, it's not that you have to censor yourself, but you need to be aware of what you're trying to make and kind of cultivate a tone and who you're trying to appeal to, And I think that it's really easy when, as a first-time creator, to be like, I don't have to worry about that at all. It's total anarchy. I'll do whatever I want. And then when you get a little more experienced, you're a little more better at that nuance of like, this is where it's okay to kind of push the envelope. This is where I just going to imply things, that certainly was my perspective. I'm just, I guess, do you have any thoughts on just that rant that I just laid out in front of you?
No, I 100. Well, yeah, there's something like, I didn't have those inclinations to be self-conscious about things that are ideas or themes in my comic when I was putting them in print. When I was pushing that publish button, that changed things a little bit.
Right.
I can't really think. There were some examples of some themes in issue 2, and this was stuff that I just kind of created. This was in the the stages of making the comic where I was just making the comic. I wasn't necessarily sure that I was going to do anything public with it or anything like that. Hitting it to that broad of an audience really opens your eyes as to, oh man, I'm communicating things to the world that it's like, did I mean it like that? Or will somebody, as the kids say, at me or anything like that? Because anybody can literally do that on a website.
Yep.
Yeah, it's different. It's really different. Granted, my subscriber count isn't large enough I don't think, to get the real serious scathing at me's yet.
Yeah.
But, you know, we're getting there.
Yeah, that's it, all in due time. Somebody will find you just to complain about you eventually. Don't worry about that.
This is my first this is my first comic, you know, like, yeah, there's others coming.
Yeah, right on. But yeah, I do think that that's an interesting aspect of both publishing on the web and also, like I said, the creative journey and just kind of learning how to, learning the nuance and the style of self-censorship. Because, you know, it's not about like...
And restraint.
That's actually a better way. It's learning restraint, because that's, you know, like art can come from restraint, you know, and I always there's so many great examples of great jokes that come out of like censorship, of not being able to say directly, so you make a joke out of it and it's really funny, because you know what they're doing, and so it's like you can use that, you can work within restraints, and great art can come out of that.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, because I noticed, like with your comic on Tapastic, when reading it, since I read everything anonymously, I have an account, but I never sign into it. So like a lot of your pages are behind like an explicit content wall,
right?
Where it's like click to view, you know, explicit content, click to view, and
got to be like every time.
It is almost every time.
Well, it's like if somebody's not getting sliced in half, they're swearing or something.
Yeah, it's just because if for another reason than the curse words, right?
Yeah, I tried to be very, you know, like safe with it, not pass anything through like, oh, this isn't mature. But you know, yeah. Originally, I was under, like, I thought I should label them all as mature pages, but then I was just like, you know, no, somebody's got to notice this somehow.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, that's the whole situation with like the movie rating system. Studios don't want R movies because people aren't going to go see it, because literally kids can't get in to see it, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's, that's the struggle, as they say. I think that's what they're referring to. But yeah, so well, let's talk a little bit more about your comic, because we've been beefing a little bit just about publishing in general and talking about the creative journey and stuff. But I do want to talk more about your comic. I know you talked about you gave a synopsis. It's a fantasy setting.
Yeah, what'd you think?
I like it. It did a good job of being like a unique world while not being like totally alien. Like it felt
right.
Like you said, Waterworld is a good example. Like it felt like something that could
medieval
have been,
Waterworld.
Yeah,
an alternate kind of paints a picture. Like boom,
is an alternate future or an alternate past. I don't know, but it's like just a slight. You know, it's like that like time traveler goes back in time and like breaks a branch, and now we all live in Oarsworld. You know, like
right,
like that type of a thing. But I am curious about like what would you say? I know you just equated it to Waterworld, but like what was your biggest like influences on the style of the comic? Like what are you drawing from when you do it?
That I love just kind of, it's a good, so it came up, I was playing The Witcher
that's
when
I can
that
see
one,
that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like you have a knight who is kind of, you know, so you have Sir Pepper Hellkinder, He's not well liked. I mean,
but by the way, I want to cut you off right there. I do love the name Hellkinder. You know, Hellchild. Like, that's great.
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Thank you. Yeah, I really like the character of Geralt a lot, and just how people don't like Witchers. They're, reviled a little bit. And I wanted to work with a knight who was he's a part of this higher order, these people that can do like amazing things, yet people don't particularly like this guy just because of how he goes about doing things. So like in issue 2, there's that story of Pepper being, like he goes to help that boat colony of mud harvesters. And just the way that he goes about it, that character finds unsettling. Like that, I don't know. I just like, I like edgelords with chips on their shoulders.
They're good. They make for good protagonists.
Yes, and I knew that I wanted to work with that kind of anti-hero with the story, and had the story framed about him having to bust some skulls in this case. Now, from finishing the first volume, it's his quest for revenge now. His quest for revenge is part of a larger, geopolitical struggle. As far as like the inspiration for, I like trees a lot. I don't know if that.
No,
your listeners will probably think like, "What the fuck does that
mean?" No, I get
swear?
that.
I didn't.
Oh yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
On YouTube, I mark this show as not for kids because no kid is going to be interested in listening to me go on about
this is
talking
this
shop
is not
about comics.
There are no Spider-Man or Elsas here.
There's no toy unboxing. There's no cartoon. There's nothing.
No Fortnite. Nothing.
Yeah, no, definitely no Fortnite.
But I just love nautical themes too. And I enjoy a lot of drawing kind of nautical theme stuff and stuff with like sparse backgrounds. Like you'll never see a really huge city that occupies like a whole bunch of, because everything's underwater. It was a setting that I could work with. So there was a little bit of a utility to it as well by picking that.
No, I definitely got that from the art. Like there's a lot of nature in your art, and so it definitely, that's what's great about art. Artists are just drawn to certain things, and it shows up in their work. So that makes perfect sense to me that you like you say, you like trees, like because I see a lot of it in there. It just looks good. One thing that struck me while reading it was I've gotten this impression from a few other indie creators, younger indie creators whose books I've read. It felt very much like it was as equally inspired from not just comic books as a medium and not even film, but also from like a video game storytelling.
That's totally fair. To some extent, when coming up with, the Oarsworn, the Millar, the Crusaders, a way that my mind conceptualized those was thinking about them as character classes in like a video game.
Yeah. I think there's a lot on the creative side. I can always, not always, but I can often tell like when somebody is very, very influenced by video games, because with the writing, there's a lot of world building, and a lot of the writing is just in the lore of the characters and less on a linear narrative, which is not to say that it's not there, but you can always tell when somebody's really interested in the like a grand scope of a world, and like I said, like the lore and stuff. And
that's a very astute observation. Because so much is like,
because that's what a video game is. Like most video game writing is you create the lore and you create the characters and you create every character, and then you you have a loose idea that the player goes through to,
right.
and they fill in a lot of the gaps themselves. That's why you have the archetype of the silent protagonist, you know, like, which your character is not a silent protagonist, but I definitely got a little bit of that vibe from your book.
Right. Well, I think that you just hit on why it's so much harder to write the next couple of issues of Oarsworn. That's
yeah. No, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Because I do think that that's how do I put this? That is I think that's one of the first big hurdles that a lot of early creators kind of come into, and it's something that I think it's something that you struggle with all the time. I still struggle with it. Like when I'm coming up with, and I mean, I'm nobody, but you know, when I come up with an idea, I'm like, okay, here's the characters, here's the world, here's the first issue. I can see it all in my head. But then I'm like, well, what's the story actually about? Like, where's this going? What is being said here? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I guess I got to come up with something. All I'm thinking about is characters doing things, you know?
Right.
And that's not a story per se. And I do think that that's the hardest thing. That's something a lot of webcomics struggle with, because again, if you're coming at it from the lore angle, and so where a lot of comics can fail is where their characters just kind of start meandering around, and it's like not going anywhere, and it's not a story. And you have like bad webcomics will have they'll lose all track, all sense of pacing
right off the bat,
right?
Yeah.
And it's just like, I've read 100 pages and it all takes place over the scope of one day, you know, because you just have this idea of all your characters doing stuff, but there's no sense of it being a story. And so that's not to say that your comic is that bad, but I definitely got the video game vibe from it. Like it's an immersive world, which is good. But I've seen a few comics in my day where that kind of is the lead in to the comic, where it's a lot of, like I said, a lot of world building, just a lot of immersive storytelling, which is fine. It is good. I'm not saying it's bad. It's just something that
I'm not getting that impression.
But it can be a challenge then to just get to that next step of like, where does it go, you know?
Right.
Because the world building is the fun stuff of the creative part.
It's the icing. It's the right. That's definitely what I've gotten. I have threads, you know, like ideas for plot lines of what to do with Pepper and stuff like that. I liked your video game analogy just because, like, that's what it feels like now, is like what main quest versus what side quest he's gonna take, and it's just like, you know, that's just astute.
Well, I mean, you know, and that's like I was saying about older comics that were just kind of created with an open-ended, you know, whatever, like here's your characters. A lot of art, a lot of great art can come out of that. You know, it's just, you just got to be able to move with the art, you know. And it's like, you set it up, you create it, and you just got to keep going with it. And like I said, Jack Kirby and Stan Lee did like 100 issues of Fantastic Four, and are all great. And other creators too. I'm only talking about Jack Kirby because I just read that biography, so he's like at the forefront of my mind.
I need to read that, but I'm probably writing that down too.
I recommend it. But no, that's I anyway, just going back to like your comic Oarsworn. So you have was it 5 issues that I read?
5. Yes.
Okay.
So they're 4, and then the 5th one is actually double sized.
That's okay. So that's what I was gonna say.
That's what throws it off.
Yeah. What threw me off was like, this 5th one is like 40 some odd pages. Like it's like 50 pages almost.
50 pages long.
I was like, okay, that's again going back to the print versus web. On the web, it can be as long as it wants. You know,
no harm, no foul.
Exactly.
But to print that sucker, not many people are going to want to pay
the
what would
extra,
be, you know, $10 for a single issue.
right?
That's where, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that I think thinking about the MSRP of everything was that's sometimes I feel that that's an advantage that I have from working, you know, from being a manager of a comic shop and filling
Mm-hmm.
out previews orders and stuff like that. That thankfully doesn't guide anything like in terms of my writing
Mm-hmm.
or, you know, my art or anything like that. But that is something that's helped a lot with selling my print copies.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so you said you had 2 issues in print, and then you moved to the web.
Well, so I was on the web the whole time.
Okay.
I printed 2 issues of the book, and then I left fantasy books and figured, you know, if I'm not in the shop, I'm not going to be able to sell these things. I've only tabled at 2 conventions.
Oh, okay. That was going to be my follow-up question.
Yeah, I need more experience doing that.
Yeah, that's hard. Don't come to me for answers because I got nothing. I don't know anything about doing comic conventions.
I enjoyed, one of them was a true to form comic convention, and the other was kind of like a general art convention that
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do all that well at.
Yeah.
But the comic convention I did actually pretty decent at.
Oh, good.
And
Can I ask which one it was?
it was one of STL Comics shows, I think, out of an antique mall in, God, it's been so long. I honestly couldn't tell you the town.
I think I know what you're talking about. Because I follow that guy on Facebook also, STL Comics.
Eric? Yeah,
Eric. Yeah, that's who it is. Okay. I did one show that he put on. Well, maybe we met at that show.
Wait a minute. Is that the connection?
Is that where we met?
That might be it, man.
So I wasn't invited to the con, but my regular artist collaborator Ed Bickford was invited, and we were doing. I can't remember if we had done. We were either still doing our book Birdlander, or we were in between doing Birdlander and American Chop Suey. I don't think we had started American Chop Suey yet, so this had to be 2017 at the latest.
No, that would have been way before me.
Okay.
Yeah, because I would have done Eric's show. That was probably 2018 or maybe early 2019.
Okay, I have ways of probably checking the exact date because there's oh, you know what? Yeah, now that I think about it, it was when we were doing the Birdlander book, right? Because it's all coming back to me now.
Okay.
So yeah, that would have been like 16, 17, somewhere.
Okay.
That was before you. Okay, so
that was when I was just like starting making, like drawing the art.
Okay.
We'll get there.
Well, now that cons are opening up, everything is coming back. I'm trying to figure out like how much attention I'm going to pay to that, because I've been laying low the last couple of years with regards to cons, where I'm just like, I don't know if they're really worth it, especially in our area.
Yeah, it still feels too soon.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm vaccinated and everything, but it just
right. You just I don't know if there's even going to anybody be there. Is it going to be worth the cost? Especially versus the risks, whatever risks are involved. And it's just like, I try not to overthink it and just be like, at least this is just time I can spend doing work and just working on my stuff. I don't, if I just don't think about it, I can just get back to work on comics. So that's good.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway, so I think we were talking about print versus web. Because I noticed that. Oh, go ahead.
You were about to ask another Oarsworn question, and
because issue 5 was double sized.
Right.
So when you had kind of stopped focusing on printing issues and you were just putting it up online, did you did you have a plan of how were you gonna do a collected edition? Was there like an idea of like, okay, this is like a big arc, it's gonna end here, and were you starting to think of it in more of a like an even grander scale? Like instead of issues, now you're thinking of it as like a series of trade paperbacks?
It's always been about the trades.
Yeah.
Since the very beginning. I don't even read single issue comics much anymore. I'm an exclusively trade graphic novel reader. And
yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's just the optimum delivery of that.
It is. Yep.
Of print comics, especially when you have bookshelves and you can brag about what you have.
Exactly. Exactly. It's such, I mean, it's cool having issues that turned out to be valuable and just being like, yeah, like I get
it, but I don't.
I get it. Yeah, it's like like I can say, look, I got early issues of Invincible, you know,
right.
Like I got issue 13 signed by Robert Kirkman and Ryan Otley. Like that's cool.
Okay,
you know?
That's pretty big.
I can be like, yeah, you know, I got the original issues of Grant Morrison and Frank Quitely's All-Star Superman. You know, I can be like, okay, those are cool, but I don't like reading them because I got to pull them out of the bags, and it's like I'm not lending them to anybody. So if I'm like, you got to read this book, it's like my favorite book. Well, you can't have the issues. You got to go out and buy it. You know? It's like I'm not.
Don't touch it.
Yeah, don't touch it. You know. So it's like, yeah, I like a collected edition. Like you said, fits better on a shelf. It looks better, easier to store, easier to read. Right. Everything about it is easier.
You can be a reader and a collector with
right,
it,
and like, no ads in it,
and no ads. But I'm not that thrown off by ads. I say that because I have an ad that's probably going to appear, and you know, like if you're going through, well, you go through. Oh shoot, why am I blanking on the name? The company that Comics Wellspring.
Yeah, Comics Wellspring. Yeah,
you gotta include their ad.
I put an ad on the back cover. I go ahead and give them that spot, and it's like it's the premium spot. They give me the best discount, and then I don't have to think of anything to put on the back cover, you know, to try and sell somebody on the book because they're buying it from me anyway. I'll just sell it to them in person.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's always been about the trade.
Yeah. So you've finished issue 5. When did that finish?
God, it seems like forever ago now. That would have been, was that April or May?
Okay.
It wasn't May. It was April.
No, it was like right around a little shortly before I think Jason put us in touch.
Correct. Yeah, it was, I believe, in April, and I've been going crazy with what to do now ever since. The return date that I have for Oarsworn for issue 6 to start hitting the web is November.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Okay. Now, since you've been working more on the web, do you think you might open it up a little bit more creatively, like not stick to any sort of page format page number for issues?
Oarsworn feels like it's just a print comic.
Yeah.
That's just always been the creative process behind it, was just like, okay, work within these confines. But, you know, I really want it to move and faster. So I'm open to the idea of maybe playing it as just a web comic.
But, that was one thing I always kind of thought about, like doing a web comic is it's like there's almost no concept of issues. Like, you know, you can be a story with chapters, but you're not like tied down to the production requirements of a page count.
The only thing though, like if I were to go that route, would be how do I replicate because you can make like just kind of like free panel, pageless free panel episodes. But then I think just because I'm printing the first book, I would want to go back.
Right. You would have to find a way to reformat it for print.
Yeah.
And that's still sounds like extra work.
That sounds incredibly difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I've dabbled in that a little bit myself, doing some like webtoon scrolling format, and then I'm like, okay, now we got to print it, and how do we make it look good on the page? And it's a whole other problem.
Or how do you line up your scroll surprise moments to page turns?
Yes,
like in the
exactly.
print, like that.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's a challenge. It's a lot of work, and to the creators that can pull it off, God bless them. Like it is a lot of work to be able to make a comic on like a scrolling format like webtoons, and then be able to translate it into a book format. It's like doing the comic all over again in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, dude, we've actually been going for about an hour here, just even not counting the few interruptions that we had and the tangents and stuff. So
I ended up taking off my headphones, my Bluetooth headband. I don't know if that's gonna throw off your continuity for editing or
I don't. I'm not worried about continuity. Half the time there's like a cat on my lap with their head poking up, or a cat behind me. Your cat has been pretty
chill.
Yeah, it's pretty chill, pretty cooperative by just staying in one spot the whole time. Oh, there we go.
There she goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So thank you for chatting with me.
Thanks for talking.
It's good to get in touch and just talk to you about stuff.
Yeah, I wrote down your comics. I'm gonna check them out.
Oh, dude, I appreciate that. Thank you. So so we've been talking about your book, Oarsworn. Where can people find it?
So they can find it on Tapas.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, you just search. I'll put a direct link in the description for the video. But yeah, do you do any social media stuff at all? Are you?
Not really. I'm a Telepathos Comics on Instagram and Telepathos Comic on Twitter.
Okay, cool.
I don't post much to either.
We could do a whole nother episode just on me complaining about social media, because that's what most of our other episodes are.
When I listen to any comics related really just anything about people, it's where can people find you?
I don't know. I guess I'm on the internet. Hey everybody, Aaron Walther here, just reminding you that if you like this podcast, please subscribe to the channel. Also, head over to secondthoughtcomics.com to stay up to date on the various comics that I write. For a limited time, I'm giving away a free PDF of my latest graphic novel, The Amoral Stingray. All you have to do is sign up to the Second Thought Comics newsletter. Link is in the description. Thanks for reading.